why is that person always so lucky? Like, good things just seem to happen to them. I'm the only one who has an obligation to me. Nobody else in this world owes me anything. It's hard to say no to people or to things. Shiny object syndrome is real, that you're probably afraid of looking stupid. Because again, things start to feel real hard, even though you think you're doing all of the right things. Hey, I'm Adam if you're new here, and if you're returning, then you know what's good. Today I want to talk about the ways we make life so much harder than it has to be for ourselves. Like naturally, the things that we want most in life, like, loving relationships, or traveling the world, or successful business, or even our dream body. These things take work, otherwise we'd all have them all the time. But that being said, we stand in our way so often, and it's not until we take a step back and realize how we're doing it that we can actually actively move forward. And it's so funny because I've observed it in myself and the people around me, like daily we are making things more difficult than they need to be. Then looking at others and being like, why is it so effortless for them? Like, why do things seem to come to them with ease? And so let's just get straight into it in this video and, unpack this. So the first thing I want to get into is this idea of luck and opportunities, right? Those things that happen apparently by chance that seem to make progressing towards your goals easier. And sometimes you just see some people and think, why is that person always so lucky? Like, good things just seem to happen to them. And the thing about life is there are so many things that are out of our control, like, where I was born and all that sort of stuff. But there are more things once you're here that are within your control. It often seems that the people who are the luckiest also are the people who tend to work the hardest or work the most intentionally. They're also the people that put themselves out there and that share their journey. And that sharing the journey is a real key. Whether you're sharing your actual work, like say you're an artist or something in your professional career, or you're just sharing about you, your experiences, your personality, there are so many ways that this helps, with this idea of luck. Because as you open yourself up to the world, and it's a saying that I really like, open yourself up to the world and it will open itself to you, right? Because you're making connections with people, whether it's because they actually want to engage with the work that you're doing, right? They see it, you're sharing it and I'm like, wow, that's quite amazing actually. I'm working on something similar. Or because you are vulnerable in a sense, maybe you've shared something about your experiences or your journey, like here on YouTube, people connect and resonate with that. And then maybe they're working on something themselves, or maybe they just want to connect with you, right? And you build relationships in that sense. And so suddenly all of these opportunities come to you, all of this abundance, and funnily enough, you're finding that you're actually getting a lot more luckier. But I know for some of us, this isn't as easy as what I just said. If you consider yourself shy or introverted or more of a homebody, then this idea of getting out there, putting yourself out there and sharing can seem quite daunting. But this is where the behaviors that we exhibit and the way that we speak to ourselves is so important. Because I, for so long, was reinforcing that idea. Like I would just say, I'm an introvert, like I'm a homebody, and act in that way, like not go out so much. But that was only to my detriment. Like it wasn't helping me evolve. It wasn't helping me progress. It wasn't helping me making connections with people. Like it was just me sitting there like, introvert, okay, now what? And I think releasing yourself from thinking that you have to be any of those things, or that you can't be fluid and that you can't have periods of your life where you are more open and share. And other times where you actually you fall back a little bit. The moment I started venturing out and sharing like this, putting myself online and sharing my journey and sharing what I learned with others, suddenly I was working with people I hadn't worked before, brands that I'd heard from, and some that I've never heard of were reaching out. I'm making connections with other creators, just other human beings in the world who I share similarities with. Like the sheer number of things that came from me just turning on a camera and sharing is wild. But it's also like in my everyday, like when I open up to people, like when I'm more receptive to meeting new people and sharing, the number of opportunities, it's been crazy. Everything from money to relationships. So you want to make things easier, you want a little bit more luck, open your heart to the world and it will open itself to you. Now let's talk about the fact that you're probably afraid of looking stupid. Now the availability bias is one hell of a thing. And it's the tendency of humans to rely on information that comes readily to the mind when evaluating situations or decisions. All that means is when we're looking at things and, deciding whether we're going to make the next step or not, we will use the information that is most available to us, which is usually the most frequent. Why does that matter? If you were trying to decide whether you're going to embark on your own journey, let's just take content creation, for example, and you're looking at some of your favorite content creators and, their last vlog or their last video, that is typically what is most available to you at the time when you're deciding your next step. But you have not accounted for the fact that they've probably been on this journey for years. And so when they started, they didn't look as slick and as polished as they do now. They didn't have the setup they have. They didn't speak as fluently or as fluidly. But that's not what you see. So now you are comparing yourself to them 5 years into their journey. And so now you are scared of looking stupid because that's who you think you're kind of competing with. Instead of realizing that you're on your own journey, and this is just all about you getting progressively better. And this applies to so many things. Like the first time I went to the gym, yeah, I probably looked a little bit like I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't really know what I was doing. Like the first time you start a job, right? Or your first post. Or the first time maybe you launch a product in your business, like things look a little bit rocky at times. That's okay. Perfectionism will keep you perfectly at zero. Like great, you won't look silly and you won't look like you're on a bumpy road, but you will also not move. You will also be at point zero. Whilst everyone else is progressing and taking one more step and one more step, or 2 more steps, or 10 more steps, you'll be there perfectly polished, doing nothing. And this is why I think it's so important that if you are drawing on inspiration from others, which is such a normal and valuable thing to do, that you are able to get as much of their journey into perspective as possible, right? So and it means you taking the active steps. It's not up to them to remind you every 2 seconds that, they started from here. It's up to you to go back and look and hope that you can find their journey. I used to do this on YouTube, like scroll to the bottom of, the video list and look at people's first videos just to remind myself that, whoa, I probably should stop putting so much pressure on myself. And if I hadn't and just expected myself to be perfect, I wouldn't be here, 3 years later on YouTube, still talking, still building a community and doing those things. So, and it goes even deeper with this whole not looking stupid thing, because we know that the only way we're going to get better at anything that's practical is to practice, is to do, is to execute. So this idea of us getting to this polished state requires us to move. But if we don't start, we'll never move, we'll never finish, to quote Denzel. So the next thing that's making things harder than it needs to be is that you're not practicing essentialism. So I'm currently reading the book Essentialism, and the general premise is that we are expending too much of our precious resources like time, like energy, like attention, on things that are not moving the needle, things that are not really making an impact. But we do them because we're not good at saying no to people, or because we like the idea of being busy, feeling busy. But all that means is that little bits of our energy are going into all of these different directions and not really adding to the overall goal that we're trying to achieve, right? They're not moving us forward really. Instead of selecting a few things, a few really impactful activities we could be doing and putting our energy into those. And the author actually talks about the origin of the word priority. Initially, at its conception, it was singular, to have a priority. And over time, and more recently, it's become priorities. And yet we haven't realized the irony of having 10 priorities. If you have 10 things that you are prioritizing, how can any of them really be receiving enough of your attention and energy and time? If there are so many things now on board, now it's just a list. Whether it's your personal, creative, or relationships, pulling out the things that are the most impactful and saying no to everything else is necessary, but it's hard, right? It's hard to say no to people or to things. Shiny object syndrome is real, but the alternative of not really moving forward and being burnt out is far worse. So the next thing I want to get into is the consumption trap. We are spending so much time engaging with self-help, but we're not helping ourselves. The irony in that we consume so much of this stuff, from videos to books, right? But then we don't act on them. And we wonder why things are not moving forward again. And because we're getting the dopamine hit almost from reading these books and watching these videos and getting that kind of high, we forget that we haven't executed, we haven't done anything, and so we're not actually closer to our goals. The information or the knowledge you acquire is only as useful as the implementations of it, like you actually taking the steps. There is nothing wrong with wanting to educate yourselves and to know about all of the different avenues and the routes that you can take to achieve what you want in life. There is a problem if you never act on it. Because again, things start to feel real hard, even though you think you're doing all of the right things. So be conscious of your consumption patterns and the balance between consuming and producing, or consuming and executing. It's something I kind of spoke about in my book on self-help books and how I love them. I still read them, but I did take a big break from them because I felt like I was just intaking all, and I hadn't worked out a good enough process for making use of the information that I was taking in. And the final thing that's probably making things harder than they need to be in your life is you're waiting for the world to save you. You're waiting for people to cheer you on. And as much as I would love for all of us to live in a world where we have the capacity to, cheer everybody on, or that people even cared enough, the reality is most people don't. Most people don't care about your life. They don't care about your journey you're on. They will care, and usually when you're at the finish line and you've got all these accomplishments, and often you can actually help them. And this isn't to be cynical, right? People can't just expend their energy everywhere, and some people just genuinely just don't care about you. But you cannot wait for people to cheer you on before you take the next step. You just cannot do it, else again you will be at zero. And this is something I noticed when I started my YouTube channel a few years ago. Like, a lot of people that I thought would repost me or share or engage they didn't show up. And I don't say this to be bitter or anything like that, but it was a real reflection that I'm the only one who has to show up for me at this point. I'm the only one who has an obligation to me. Nobody else in this world owes me anything. Yeah, I guess maybe your parents, but beyond that kind of scope, it's you. And this isn't in a way that, it's me, myself, and I against the world. But if you are continuously waiting for other people to make, the step for you or to encourage you, it's a very dangerous place to be in. So if you want to move forward in life, you have to stop waiting for the world to save you. You have to take the initiative. You have to take the action and execute and share, like we spoke about before. And suddenly you'll see that the way the world is responding to you is different. And then you can decide who you want to bring along with you in that journey, or even at the finish line. But you have to show up for you. And so that's it. Those are the ways I feel like we stand in our own way. Like, we become an obstacle in our own journey, along our own paths. Often because we kind of can't get out of our own heads. If you're looking for a little bit more on this, then check out my video on self-help books. Or, just close the laptop and go and execute. That's also an option. See you in the next video.